On this day in history, March 14th, 1590, as part of the Battle of Ivry, Henry of Navarre and the Huguenots defeat forces of the Catholic League under Charles, Duke of Mayenne, during the French Wars of Religion. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, going over the history of the battle. Battle of Ivry, 1590. The Battle of Ivry, France, was fought between the Huguenots under Henry IV of France and the Catholics under the Duke of Mayenne on March 14, 1590. On August 1, 1589, Henry III was assassinated and Henry IV of Navarre ascended the French throne, and at the Battle of Ivry, won by him on September 28, 1589, he, through his energy, gallantry, and resourcefulness, established himself as the national hero. The next year, the Duke of Mayenne laid siege to Melun, but fell back on the approach of Henry. No sooner had the king withdrawn than he was recalled to confront Mayenne, who, reinforced by the Spaniards, had returned. The two forces, the duke's numbering about 13,000 and the king's somewhat less, met on the plain of Ivry. The following brief account of the battle, which took place, will give some idea of the desultory tactics in vogue at this time. Henry first drew up his army, prayed, and then adjusted his helmet, on the crest of which floated 3 white plumes. Before lowering his visor, he said to his companions, "I will conquer or die. Keep well your ranks, and if the heat of the battle compels you to leave them, always rally. It is one thing to remember in war. This you should do by the 3 pear trees you see yonder on my right. If you lose your banners and your standards, do not, however, lose sight of my white plume, for you will always find it on the road of honor and pointing towards victory." Colonel Schomberg, a captain of mercenaries, rode up to the king and demanded that his men should be paid. Henry, in a rage, rebuked him, and then throwing his arms about him, kissed him, whereupon Schomberg, with tears in his eyes, replied, "O sire, in giving me back the honor you took from me, you take away my life." The charge was sounded.
Je me bats comme un trait, foncer l'ennemi comme un lion furieux, et me les armées à la main.
And Schomberg sped forward like an arrow, hurled himself like a furious lion on the enemy, and died, sword in hand. With the shouts of "Vive le Roi!" battalions and squadrons followed with him. The two sides clinched, and for several hours attacks were made and repulsed without any decided advantage being gained. A page bearing a white plume in his helmet being killed, a panic seized upon some of Henry's squadrons. At the moment he was busily engaged in a hand-to-hand fight, lost to sight in a melee. Cutting his way out, his white plumes were once again seen, whereupon his soldiers, wild with joy, charged forward, and the enemy was routed. A pursuit to the bridge of Ivry then followed, at which most of the foreign troops in Mayenne's pay were butchered, the French and Swiss alone receiving quarter. The prestige won at Ivry was Henry's true gain and victory. He was accepted by France, and then, as an act of political wisdom, in July 1593, he became a Catholic, and 2 years later brought about the collapse of all opposition.